keen to talk to you about sewage.
Yes.
But first, if we could just touch on the Keir Starmer speech. Yeah. He accused the government of sabotaging civil society. What does he mean by that?
Well, they've been attacking organisations like the National Trust, the RNLI, these great pillars, these institutions that millions of British people belong to. The Conservatives have decided to take the culture wars, as you described it, and use it as a wedge to try and pull our country apart because they've got nothing positive to offer the future of our country. Now, I think it's entirely appropriate that an aspiring Prime Minister in Keir Starmer is talking very differently about how we bring people together, the importance of the relationships that bind us together, and the institutions, particularly in civil society, that allow people to assert voice and influence decision-making. That seems to me substantial and significant, and I'm very pleased to hear it from him.
I found lots of examples of the Conservatives criticising the National Trust,
yeah,
but not really the Royal National Institute of Lifeboats. Have I missed some examples of this?
Well, you may have done. So in the original draft of the Borders Bill, the Conservative Party tried to criminalise organisations that were trying to rescue people from the English Channel. And Lee Anderson, until last week when he quit, was the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, attacked the RNLI directly for rescuing people who may be at risk of drowning in the English Channel. That's a Facebook post by him, right, isn't it? I mean, it's not like, Rishi Sunak's done that much on it. Well, I mean, this is the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, and it was the entire Conservative government that put forward the Borders Bill. No, the Borders Bill was a piece of legislation proposed to Parliament. Now, thank goodness it got stopped, but that was the Conservative Party attacking the RNLI, the very people that come out and rescue you, me, anyone else, if we're getting in trouble in the sea. Why would they choose to do that? This is about the politics of division, when what we need after all of these years when the Tories have just divided the country because they think there's some political advantage to themselves in it, we need a leader that's going to bring us back together.
The other thing that we mentioned is the National Trust. There was a bit of a row about whether or not they should put up signs explaining British heritage links to slavery, say, for example, at Winston Churchill's house. Do you back the National Trust in doing that?
Well, I don't think you can just elide from history the bits we don't like. The history, good or bad, is what makes our country what it is today. Every country has a history that's a mixture of good and bad. I'm immensely proud to be British. I think we have a really positive history. I think we make a positive contribution to the world. But that doesn't mean I'm afraid to talk about the bits I might not be agreeing with. These are facts, and I don't think it hurts us to know those because they can help us inform and shape the future.
I'm quite interested in this story because it feels to me like Keir Starmer, until now, has been a bit wary of getting dragged into the culture wars. Has that policy changed?
No, I genuinely think it's just looking at the way that the Conservatives choose to keep dividing this country because they see political advantage in it for themselves. They see it in other countries as well. If you look at the United States, where Donald Trump is an expert at division and he benefits from it politically.
But if you decided to be
are losing from that.
If you decided to be a bit more muscular in that, a bit braver in saying what you believe in and what you want to stand up for.
They want to divide this country. We want to bring it back together because I think we can achieve the best outcomes by harnessing the potential of all the British people, not splitting our country apart. We're stronger if we're together. That's exactly the kind of message we should be hearing from a leader.
What do you make about the BBC interview with Lucy Fraser? She said to Kay Burley this morning that on occasions the BBC has shown bias. Do you think it has?
Well, I'm pretty sure if you look at any news organisation, at some point you're not going to agree or you think they've been biased one way or the other. I don't personally think it's fair to say that about the BBC exceptionally, and indeed the Minister wasn't able to cite any specific examples of it. That said, I'm not against increasing the governance over an organisation like the BBC. They're funded very differently from other channels. The licence fee means people are obliged to pay for all of us to view it. So I'm not against stronger governance, but given that the Minister couldn't actually cite any examples, you have to wonder whether this was just another example of Conservatives coming in to divide things.
But you think maybe there are examples of news organisations, including the BBC, showing bias? I guess everyone is biased.
I'm sure it's. I don't think organisationally there is. No, I don't. But I'm sure you could find examples in individual shows where she wouldn't be happy, I wouldn't be happy. But then if you're going to cover the news, listening to all voices, that's going to happen occasionally.
Right, let's talk sewage. Dirty water is a huge issue for so many people, whether it's not being able to swim at your local beach or toxic rivers. What is it that you want to see?
Well, I was up at the River Aire near Shipley in Yorkshire today, and I was taken to see one of the outlets that is supposed to be where water comes out. You could still see the dried wet wipes, the sanitary towels hanging out of the grill where raw sewage had been pumped out, flowing down the rocks into the River Aire. The place stank to high heaven. And this is far from the only place, because last year we saw the highest level of recorded illegal discharges of sewage that we've ever seen. And it's polluted pretty much every single river in the country. People are quite right to be furious about that, but the government doesn't seem to have any plan to deal with it. Now, at the same time as the water bosses are overseeing that level of failure and illegal behaviour, they let the water bosses, since the last general election, pay themselves £25 million in
They didn't pay themselves, did they? They were paid that, but that would be, their board.
Well, I'm sure they were involved in the recommendations to their boards to pay them at £25 million for overseeing catastrophic failure and increasing levels of illegality. Those discharges are not legal. It is illegal to dump those in the water, and yet no action's being taken. Now, Labour's proposing to put the water companies under special measures. A key part of that will be to give the regulator the powers they need to ban water bosses being paid bonuses if they are overseeing severe levels of illegal behaviour resulting in that kind of sewage being dumped into our waterways. Now, that, Sophie, strikes me as a very common sense proposal. I've not spoken to anybody that doesn't think we should do it. So my offer to Steve Barclay, the Environment Secretary, is you don't seem to have a plan. Here's a sensible one. Work with me. We will help you to get this, as the Conservative government, through Parliament and enact this so we can stop what I'm pretty sure most of your viewers will perceive as deeply unfair.
I don't think anyone will disagree about the idea of, wet wipes and sewage being pumped into rivers as being something that is of huge concern, obviously. Yeah. I guess my question is whether you're being radical enough on this. If I look back to May last year, the FT reported you were looking at plans to create a new water regulator. Is that happening?
Well, we can give the existing regulator the powers they need.
Do you trust them, though? Because off what? I mean,
well,
they've been overseeing for years.
What I want to do, this is about practicality.
Have you changed your mind on that, then?
It's about practicality. What is the quickest way that if we are fortunate enough to be elected into government, at the election I presume will be later this year, what's the quickest way we can take action about this? Strengthening the powers of the existing regulator is quicker than picking that regulator apart and setting up.
Did you look into it and you thought, actually, this is going to take too long, let's do this instead?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. This is the quickest way to go about it. I mean, banning bonuses for polluting water bosses isn't the only part of the special measures. Holding them criminally liable personally would be another part of that. Mandatory monitoring of what's coming out of every outlet and then fining them with severe and automatic fines for illegal discharges, that's another part of it. So it's a big raft of measures. But my offer to the government is, look, Steve Barclay, you don't have a plan. Here's a plan. You're welcome to steal it, and we'll help you get it through.
A lot of people will be listening to this saying, there's another plan you could have to nationalise the water companies.
Yeah, if we wanted to go much slower and spend tens of billions of pounds about it. But I want to deal with this problem practically.
I guess what some people might worry, though, is look, they think, as you say, they've been making a huge amounts of money out of this, the water's getting worse, it's time for radical action, not effectively doing the same as the Conservatives, but a little bit more competently.
There's nothing radical about spending £90 billion of public money buying out the existing owners when we've got a National Health Service crying out for investment. We've got schools literally crumbling in front of parents and young students' eyes. This is about prioritisation apart from anything else. But we do need to take action quickly. People are looking at the state of our waters. Down in Kent recently, people were talking to me about sewage tomatoes, which is where people have eaten tomatoes, the seeds end up in the sewers, they lap up onto the beaches, and they start to grow into tomatoes. It is a disgusting little image that tells you what's gone wrong. If we get a Labour government, I want to work on it straight away. But even before the election, if the Tories are willing, we'll work with them to get our plan through.
OK, thank you very much indeed.